This is Goosebumps the game for the Nintendo Switch, initially released on October of 2015. It was developed by WayForward and published by Game Mill Entertainment. It's available on all the current main platforms, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and Steam, and I think most of those are probably digital versions, but I picked up this hard copy last summer for $12, and I finally popped it in the system. Honestly, I had no idea what I was getting, but it turned out to be a decent enough experience. For point of reference, I know little to nothing about the lore of the Goosebumps series. I know it is, or was, wildly popular, and basically it's a bunch of creepy stories. They're just targeted at a younger crowd. I'm all for this, as you need to build new horror fans somehow, and there's plenty of horror out there in movies or games that are just inappropriate for this audience. This does mean that you can expect certain things to not be present here. No overt violence, nudity, blood, or vulgar language. The horror that we get here is really designed to be more creepy in nature, as opposed to horrific, and it's possibly something you'd consider more classic or just gothic in nature. There is death, though, although it's something that's just implied, and it happens pretty fast. This is when you're going to get a game over sign, and you'll have to restart, and this can happen in a few different places. No blood, though. At its core, this is just a point-and-click adventure, where you're going to control a cursor, and you're going to click on different parts of the game to pick up items and interact with the world. This isn't a new gameplay style by any means, but it works just fine here. Animations, when we get them, are going to be pretty basic. Screens are going to be mostly static images, although there are going to be embellishments or limited animations for an occasional monster or character. When you see this, it looks like nothing more than them cutting out part of an image and moving it just a little. Think Monty Python's Flying Circus, but to a lesser extent. I'm not a fan of this type of animation personally, but I'm okay with it here. It works. As of writing this, I am 75% of the way through the game. I did have to redo a sizable portion due to a failed save. That was great, but even with that, it is an interesting experience. In terms of game handling, honestly, it's probably best on Steam when you control it with a mouse. On the Switch, you're using a controller, and the sensitivity of the cursor, it's just not the same. It's certainly doable, because there's really little in the game that relies on precise timing and manipulation. It's more of an annoyance, I guess, and occasionally you might need to take a little extra care to make sure you're selecting exactly what you want to select. It's also not an open world experience, it's just a series of areas connected in a basic map layout. You can use the cursor to find available directions from your current screen, or you can press a button on the left directional pad, or the left directional buttons if you're using the Joy-Cons. You move your cursor using the left analog stick, and you select things with the A button. Most screens have something to pick up or interact with, and items that you find in one location can solve a problem on another screen, and in some cases, you can actually use that same item multiple times, which is something I wasn't expecting. Historically, when I play these games, it always seemed like item A on this screen solves problem A on another screen, and then you probably never need to use that item again. Here, you actually get to use the screwdriver in a few different places, which I don't know why, but I find impressive. I guess fundamentally the most important thing to remember is you should be looking to pick up anything they let you pick up, because you never know what it is you're going to need later. You also have unlimited storage space, so encumbrance is not an issue. I imagine this was a conscious choice from the developers to make sure this was a little bit more accessible to a younger audience. If you want to kick up the difficulty on a game, you limit characters to what they can carry, which would make them have to juggle and drop items along the way. You'd have to prioritize. Without this particular limitation, you really only have to focus on finding stuff and trying to solve the little puzzles in front of you. Which is what the game is, really, a series of little puzzles stacked on top of each other that you need to figure out. Most are you just using an item or collecting something to give you a little bit of access to another screen. You have a menu of items on the right side, and you can select and drag them into the main window and use them on scenery or people, like using a screwdriver on a screw or putting chess pieces on a chessboard. It's standard point-and-click adventure stuff, I suppose. It's Goosebumps, and there is a basic story to this. but I consider it a little cluttered. There's a lot here. We start with the moving company, and there are two guys driving. They're traveling with a truck filled with a bunch of haunted artifacts, it seems, and then they crash in your town, close to your house. You come home from school, you see the moving van, and when you go home, your house is there, but it's just different somehow. It's definitely your house, but it's a little different inside, and there's also a creepy woman in there who says she's your aunt, and there are these 3 ghosts in your foyer. You have to dispatch all of these one way or the other, make your way through the house, try to figure out what's going on, and it's not that obvious what the real story is at first. I guess it's some sort of a curse. I know the Goosebumps series introduced a lot of different villains in their stories, and I think the most famous is a vaudeville mannequin that's cursed and talks. He's definitely in this, and I'm pretty sure he's the main villain. At one point he pops up on your television, and it's creepy enough, and he kind of lures you on. So your goal was to try to make your way to him and, I guess, fix whatever voodoo or magic spell is going on that is affecting things. Ultimately, this is a pretty broad story or plot. I think it's just enough to get you moving. It also seems like they took a bunch of stuff from the Goosebumps series, the books, the TV shows, what have you, and they tried to put them in here. I imagine for fans, seeing bits and pieces of the stories that you read and loved is probably pretty great. Whether it's a picture on a wall or it's an object in a van, who knows. Here, having read 0 books in the series, I'm probably not noticing a bunch of the little things, but the things that I do notice, they feel creepy enough. Most specifically, what stands out for me is there's a clown portrait in your living room, and it's kind of hilarious and haunting every time I see it. It's pretty funny. And of course, when I see that mannequin, it kind of jostles me a little bit because I do not like those classic mannequins. This isn't a particularly difficult game, but it's got enough little creepy bits in there to keep it interesting. We don't get any outright jump scares, but there's enough going on here for me to like it. It's a fun little puzzler with some quirkiness, and it kind of makes me want to look a little deeper into the Goosebumps universe. It also seems that in addition to the books, the movies, and the television show, there are in fact a bunch of video games that are out there. Some are mobile games, which I don't really care for, but there are some on the consoles, and some of these look like they might be reasonable to check out. I might give them a look. Well, that's all I have for Goosebumps, the game for the Switch today. Thank you for stopping by to take a look, and please like and subscribe and all that good stuff if looking at random video games is your type of thing. It certainly is mine. Hope to catch you on another one.